And joining us right now is Niall Ferguson. He is a CBS News contributor and senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. So let's start with Iran, because we know the conflict back on with President Trump is suggesting that he may not even be able to make a deal going forward. Can you talk to us about where we go from here?
Well, President Trump's approach to diplomacy is quite unlike that of previous presidents in our lifetimes. It's the art of the deal, and it owes more to New York real estate than traditional diplomacy. And we've seen this multiple times, more recently than earlier this year, or rather last year, the Gaza memorandum or the Gaza agreement, which had a similar quality, didn't really achieve lasting settlement of the problem in Gaza any more than the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran has done. The Strait of Hormuz is still contested territory. The only thing that can be said is that the flow of oil, the flow of vessels, tankers through the strait is significantly higher today than it was prior to the Memorandum of Understanding. And that was really the objective. It doesn't represent a lasting ceasefire, much less peace.
So do you think this assures allies that the U.S. will remain an active member of NATO? We're talking about NATO here. And also, what was your big takeaway from that two-day NATO summit in Turkey?
Well, I think from a European perspective, it went as well as they could have hoped for. In particular, President Trump spoke much more positively about Ukraine and negatively about Russia than we've been used to. Compare this with the period immediately after his inauguration last year, when he seemed to take pleasure in beating up on the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky. So I think the Europeans were relieved that President Trump was constructive in Ukraine and that he wasn't too vindictive towards them, with the exception of Spain, for their lack of enthusiastic support at the beginning of the U.S. Israel war against Iran. So Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, will be breathing a sigh of relief and sleeping the sleep of the just, having got through Ankara without a major blow-up.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch to another topic, because what is the latest on getting a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine? That war still happening, but right now it seems the focus is on Iran and the U.S.
That's right. While we focused on the Strait of Hormuz in the first half of this year, the war between Ukraine and Russia escalated. The Russians have been waging a systematic campaign of terror bombing against Ukrainian cities, going after residential facilities, apartment blocks with cruise missiles. And the Ukrainians are short of air defenses, making it very hard indeed for them to intercept Russian missiles. They can get the drones, but not the missiles. Ukraine has countered with deep strikes into Russian territory, not only with drones, but also with their own homemade missiles, the so-called flamingos. And they're hitting Russia where it hurts, in its oil and energy infrastructure. And some of these strikes are going right into the Russian heartland around Moscow and St. Petersburg, and even far east into places that previously Ukraine had not reached. So the war has actually been escalating. The question is whether this escalation brings us closer to some kind of settlement, as President Trump has been hoping ever since his return to the White House. I wish I could say that Putin's about to see reason and recognize that he can't win this war and cut a deal, but I'm afraid I don't see much sign of it, because he still wants the whole of the Donbass, and frankly, I don't think the Ukrainians are ready to yield that at this stage in the conflict.
Wow, so many question marks about what comes next. Niall Ferguson, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.